welcome to PR Done and Dunner. I'm your host, Bob Geller. Our topic today is something that could spell the death of PR or be a boon for it, depending on who you listen to. And I'm talking, of course, about AI. And here to discuss the topic is somebody who is very smart, accomplished, and can add a great point of view. His name is Dirk Nicol. More than 25 years ago, Dirk conceived and launched IBM DeveloperWorks, one of the world's largest technical content communities, which once generated about a quarter of IBM's organic web traffic. And there at IBM, he grew a line of business to more than 200 million in annual revenue. He holds 26 patents and is the author of the book Mobile Strategy. Today, as founder of Majentics, Dirk is working on the next major platform shift, how AI decides which businesses people see, trust, and ultimately recommend. And I am proud to call Dirk a friend and Majentics a Fusion PR partner. Welcome to the podcast, Dirk. How are
Great
you?
to be here. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you, Bob.
Yeah, it's great to connect again and speak with you. And
Yeah,
one thing we share in common is that we're both ex-IBMers, although I think you
right.
you did better there and spent more time than I did. I had a short stint. Actually, our time probably overlapped. I was there in the mid to late 90s. Were you there
Oh
then?
yeah, yeah. I joined in '94, so yeah, a few
Okay,
years
there you
maybe.
go. I worked on
Yeah.
the global services side, running a team of Lotus Notes consultants. Remember Notes back in the day?
Oh yeah, that was a big deal for sure.
And I definitely remember DeveloperWorks,
Oh, okay.
great content community. And we met through RevTech, which is a fintech accelerator, as you know,
Yeah.
located in Charlotte, North Carolina. So that shows the power of the RevTech community to connect people and forge great relationships. Um, Before we get into the Q&A, I'd like to frame the topic a little further. And we are looking at the glass is half full aspect of AI impact, namely the potential of AI powered search and chat to spike demand for tactics that can influence results. And some say this gets down to more press releases, more articles,
Mhm.
and other related content and PR results. But we're hearing all these predictions about how this will be a game changer for PR. I really hope this is true. Who knows? It seems a little frothy.
Mhm.
Uh, I'll share an example, Dirk, of a pitch I got, and I get pitches for my blog and for the podcast. Are you covering recent shifts in PR budgets? I'm reading from it. Gartner predicts that brands will double their earned media budgets by 2027 as AI powered search reshapes how consumers discover and evaluate companies. Pretty interesting, right, Dirk?
Yeah, right. The shift is on. That's what it seems like.
And Gartner's ever wrong, right? But we invited you on to help us cut through the noise, debunk myths, understand what's really going on, and give the audience a better understanding of things that we think hope will help them out in their efforts to try to, in some way, influence the AI search results. So, all that said, um, as our audience knows, we also like to cover the startup story and entrepreneurial angles. And maybe you can just share a few quick words,
Yeah.
Dirk, about your inspiration for starting Majentics and how that all happened.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. No, I'm really excited to be here and excited to chat about this topic. It's really fascinating kind of shift in the marketplace. I've spent a lot of my career in kind of digital transformation and digital marketing, and I think we're in the middle of one of the biggest changes in the way I think customers find businesses since really pretty much the beginning of the internet. I mean, we really built the internet, with websites and web pages and everything around the assumption that there's a human on a customer journey. They search, they go to a website, they read an article, then they go to a shopping cart and they buy. So there's this journey that we assume a human does the entire process. But now with AI, a lot of those steps are sort of being reimagined. We are AI is doing the initial research, it's doing the initial recommendation. And very soon, agents will be transacting on behalf of people and doing the shopping and closing and making purchases. So as I sort of been my career around digital transformation, I really wanted to do a business that's really focused on that space. How do we rethink how we are approaching working with AI in changing the way that we interact with businesses? And so that's what Majentics focuses on. It's focused on initially this sort of AI visibility. How does a business appear in AI when people ask the question of what's the best this or that? And then, eventually agents. How do we, as content providers and PR professionals, create information that would then eventually impact how AI answers questions that our customers are asking?
Makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I mentioned a few words about Magentics up top, and you filled in more information. I guess, do you have special technology that can help?
Yeah, so if you think about this, and we can get into this a little bit further as we talk, but if you think about the arc, you want to figure out what are the questions that people ask or your customers will ask about your business. And then you want to monitor that. Almost think about a share of answers. Like, is your business being referenced or answered based on those sets of questions that your customers may ask? And so you need a tool to monitor that. So that's one thing that Magentics does. And then also you need to figure out, well, what do you do to change that? If, say, your competitors are appearing more often than you are, Magentics also figures out what are the tactics you should run in order to change that visibility. And then some of the things that we can do is also help with execution. So that's really where I think this partnership that we have with Fusion is really valuable, because you all have the expertise on really executing the content and the earned media that's really going to influence it. And Magentics comes to the table with some of the technology and monitoring and statistical analysis to figure out what should you and shouldn't you do.
That's great. That's great. And I've had the chance to kick the tires, and I'll say it is impressive. It works really well. Um, but stepping back a bit, this ties in with a larger trend, right? About basically what's changed and how buyers find and choose brands. Would you say, maybe you could talk a little bit more about that? And is it bigger or much different than SEO, would you say? Or will it be bigger? I mean, right now it's still fairly new.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing is that a shift in the way people interact with information gathering and research. More and more people are starting to use like ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity to do their shopping research or their B2B, vendor purchases research. So about half of people, just doing some research and prep for this podcast, Pew did an analysis back in June that about half of U.S. Citizens use ChatGPT or some AI to do research for a business. So that's a bigger trend.
Wow.
But a lot of people still use Google for search for sure. And that's also changing also, because Google actually's user interface is inserting more and more AI answers into the experience. So even those people who aren't using LLMs or large language models like ChatGPT or whatever to do their research, they're using Google instead. Google in of itself is changing to have an AI overview on top of that now. So I think it's unavoidable that AI will probably be the primary kind of user surface by which we, get our information from.
Seems like you really can't get away from it, can you? And
It's inevitable, I think.
there's good and bad sides of that, but that's probably a
Absolutely.
whole nother conversation. But it's incredible how quickly we've adopted it and how comfortable we are with it.
Yes.
And you have a sense maybe that we're whistling past the graveyard, and maybe this might mean bad things down the road. I don't know. But meanwhile, we're very glad to have the help of AI. Um, so, but what do you find to be common misperceptions about this area?
Well, as you were chat of alluding to kind of our previous experiences, our paradigm around search, and I think we've been accustomed to thinking that the website is kind of the main real estate that you need to use to influence. And that, and in the search area, that really was true because those are the 10 links that you get on the search result pages, and that's a link to some web page. But with AI is really looking at a very broad set of content and information about you. It's not just your website. It's looking at earned media. It's looking at social media, Reddit, Wikipedia, all these different sources that form an opinion or a trust layer that AI uses to come up with its answer. And so it's almost like this sort of an anecdote. It's kind of like if you were searching for a job, you have a resume and then you have your references. The resume was kind of like the web page, but what people really care about is what are your references? What do people say about you? And that's kind of what AI is looking for. It's looking for how do I trust the claims about this business? And that's what I'm going to use to form my opinion and the answer in the response.
And you think many people don't just get that, or do you think, I don't know. I mean, is that a misunderstanding?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people spend a lot of time focused on their website. I think another big sort of misunderstanding is that people put in a response and then they put in the same response and they get a different answer, and they think, well, AI is wrong, or but they have to think about AI in much more of a statistical approach. So on average, when we start thinking about what are the different responses, any one response may be different than another. It's not like Google search where we have the same 10 links no matter who looks. But with AI, you're going to get a lot of variability. But statistically, over many runs, there are consistent patterns that you'll see. So that's why you really need tools that do statistical monitoring of AI responses as opposed to just looking at one response. So I think that's another one is just getting your head around the non-determinate approach that AI uses to come up with its answers.
What does that mean?
So uh, when an AI comes up with an answer, it's using a statistical model. You put in a set of questions, put in a question,
Right.
it's going to figure out what is the most likely response to that. But it's also going to be a function of its training, its previous conversations with you, any sort of instructions you may have given it. So the answer is going to be quite varied. But research has shown that on average, over a variety of different answers, for example, if you're looking for a particular brand or a business, that a statistical sampling of the answers will give you a consistent response. That response is a function of what AI perceives of you based on all the different sources that it looks at.
Makes a lot of sense. And regarding the different sources it looks at, the million-dollar question, does earned media really influence what AI systems return as far as an answer? And how does that actually work?
Right. So there's really two things you need to think about from an AI answer perspective. One is the training. So AI, these large foundation model companies will spend a lot of time and money training an LLM on vast sources of data. And so that is one part of how an AI answers. The second is what they call retrieval. Every AI or LM has a search engine built into it. So Gemini uses Google. ChatGPT has most likely uses Bing. Claude uses the Brave search engine. So when you ask a question, it's going to look at its training data, and if it's not complete, it will then send a search engine out on the internet to get additional information, and it'll assimilate that into an answer. And so when AI does that retrieval, it is going to cite its sources. And the data seems to point to that earned media, this what I mentioned before, this sort of picture of what it is that the LM determines, trustworthy about you, has to have a source that is trustworthy. It has to have things like claims that are clear, and they have to be consistent across sources. And so it's looking in places like major publications and major resources. And the more valid those resources are, the more trust the LLM will have in providing you as an answer. So the data does point to the sort of earned media as a major lever.
That's great. Let me make sure I understand and the audience understands. Are we trying to influence the web search part that the AI chats do, or the model, or both? The LLM or both?
I think, well, both, but the training is extremely hard to measure, almost impossible to measure, because of what's happening is the model is going out and training on the internet data, and it's putting what they call weights or statistical parameters within its model. So it's very difficult to measure that, and it's very slow. It takes a long time, and then there's a cutoff. Usually, the training will maybe several months ago will be the last time it did that. So it's never current. So there's this combination of these both that's really important. But the one that we can really influence and make a difference in is the retrieval part of it. Some data, so Muckrack did an analysis, and he said like 84% of citations earned are from earned media.
Wow.
And then of that, 27% was journalistic type content. So there is a definitely, just, data has shown that there's some influence. But the trick is, though, you have to have the right type of earned media content. For example, I'm not sure if you know this, Bob, but the New York Times is in litigation with OpenAI,
Yes.
so that OpenAI does not crawl the New York Times.
Haven't they worked that out though? I thought the Times paid them a licensing, or they paid the Times a licensing fee. Have they worked that out? I don't know
I don't
exactly.
know, it could be, but I think there is some limitations in how that all works. So
Okay.
I guess the point is this, that just because the typical PR may have landed a front page on the New York Times, for example, or some other place, it doesn't always mean that the crawling is going to happen. So you have to think through strategically the types of earned media. It may not be the ones that we've always used in the past.
Interesting. And I'd like to drill down a little bit more on that. But first, getting back to my question from before, I want to better understand this. So the typical question and response, you want to make sure your B2B SaaS ranks highly when somebody asks, what is the top B2B SaaS for pick your category, cybersecurity, fintech, AI, whatever. And as I understand it, the way you'd probably try to influence those results is to have articles that have roundups, and maybe you're in the top one or two. But is the LLM seeing that? I mean, I don't know if when it goes out into the fetch to the web, does that get reflected in the answer? Or is the web results just part of a citation? Uh,
So what the LLM is doing is it's going to go out, it'll do some basically research. And this is another interesting thing. When we as humans do research, we probably don't go past the first page of Google. Um, but the LLM can go through hundreds of pages and hundreds of websites, and it will assimilate those into an answer. And it will then cite where it got the information from. And this is actually an important part of the sort of all technique to AI visibility. And that is, if you have a set of questions you think your customer is going to ask about you, like you said, best B2B CRM system or whatever, and your competitors are being cited, because in the LLM, they're going to show you the citations, little
right.
reference at the bottom of their answer. you can go back and figure out, okay, what are those media types and information that's being cited to get that competitor referenced. And then you can reverse engineer that, and that can be kind of the skeleton of your kind of PR plan or earned media plan.
Okay, that helps. And also, I guess some may wonder, what about like a PR wire service
Oh,
or
mhm.
other kinds of content? I mean, say content on your website. Let's say you have a blog section, or you have interesting content in FAQ on your website.
Mhm.
Do those things impact?
So there's an interesting question. So the PR, the press release. So the data shows that the press release in of itself is often not referenced or cited. But I think the purpose of a press release wasn't always to be the source; it was to generate other media to sort of pick up that information.
Right. I'm saying, like, let's say assume it gets syndicated on Yahoo Finance like it
Yeah,
often does, or some other news outlet. Is
yeah,
that a
no, that
sort?
that does definitely help. That definitely having that press release trigger multiple sources and reputable um, outlets is a very big advantage for earned media because that's what the LM is doing. It's trying to figure out uh, what do I believe about this entity, and it's going to look at different sources. And if it sees consistent um, perspective from reputable sources across multiple places, that starts to be a signal to the LM that this is the right answer to provide.
That makes sense. And then, of course, I mean, in PR, we may or may not work with a company on its own media, its website. We may provide content. Regardless, I'm assuming companies also have to get their house in order as far as their website to, in some way, help.
Yeah, definitely. That's sort of the baseline. You definitely need to have the website clear, and also the earned media that you have has to be consistent with the website. The LM is going to look for inconsistencies. If they're seeing inconsistency, that can be a problem. It's also going to look for currency. You know, if two vendors have equal sort of footprint, one with more current articles is going to outweigh the ones with older content, and that just makes sense. Again, the LMs is looking for signals for what is it can trust. Um, on the other flip side, things like advertising, those sorts of things don't seem to move the bar very much at all. So self promotion doesn't seem to do it. In the SEO era, things like backlinks are not as critical in this era. Again, the LM
Right.
is not necessarily looking for backlinks or other techniques that people use like keyword stuffing. It's going to look at what is the footprint that you have more broadly on the internet and sort of assess that that trust level.
So I guess, like SEO, probably the whole game favors larger companies, sites that are probably fairly deep, or maybe the brand is out there already in many places. Um,
Actually, there's a really interesting point that I wanted to raise is that what we're seeing is that we had this notion in SEO of sort of this reputation, this long-term reputation, and but that's not necessarily the case now with AI. You can see one brand with clearly a superior product and superior kind of brand or industry recognition with maybe a weak earned media footprint, and a smaller company, brand new, with a very comprehensive earned media, um, kind of doing better with the answers. So there's this, I'd say this is opportunity for the smaller guy because we're in this new sort of industry reset to rethink how they basically appear in this new paradigm.
right. So what I'm hearing is that it's a mistake to draw too many comparisons to what worked with SEO. And while we're on that topic, though, where do you fall out on this? GAO or GEO, or do they mean different things?
Yeah, I think these industry always tries to come up with new acronyms to sort of sell services or something. I don't
Right.
know. But so actually, AEO is a term that actually was before this LLMs. That term AEO actually came about with like Alexa and other sort of answer-based systems. So it was sort of a buzzword with people trying to figure out how to get AIs to answer in a particular way. Um, GEO came about actually as a peer-reviewed research paper from Princeton that sort of coined that term. Uh, so some people try to distinguish the two. There really isn't that much of a difference. It's sort of a buzzword. I try to use this AI visibility, or I guess maybe GEO if I have to, because there is that sort of research backing it. So
Interesting. And I think as we've seen, what works today may not work tomorrow. It's a
absolutely,
very quickly changing game.
absolutely.
What do you think about that? I mean, do you think, at least for the foreseeable future, some of these ideas we're talking about, the technology behind Magentics, is going to continue to prove to be effective? Do you have to constantly evolve it?
No, that's a great point, and I think this is a fundamental shift in paradigm from what we thought about with digital marketing in the past. So in the search era, right, we had a vendor for the most part, Google, who had a algorithm that somebody architected and programmed. Now they kept that secret, and then the whole industry of SEO was really around reverse engineering that and figuring out how you kind of play to that algorithm and optimize for it. Well, these LLMs are not an algorithm, right? There's nobody programmed these LLMs to have a particular behavior. They are, again, we use this term non-deterministic. It is it is coming up with an answer based on your input. It's not pre-programmed.
Right.
So what that means to your question is that it is constantly, we are in a new industry with new terminology, new approaches, and everybody's learning. If there's anybody who claims that they can quote unquote rank you, uh, uh, it is probably selling snake oil, because we're in an emerging space that is changing. So the trick is you have to constantly be learning, constantly be looking at what is happening with the outcomes. This is back to this, we talked about what Majentics does and other tools like this that does this monitoring. You have to constantly monitor the behavior and adjust your tactics based on that. Because these vendors are, AI is changing so quickly. OpenAI or Anthropic, they're changing their model on almost a weekly basis, and that behavior is also changing. So you have to sort of stay on top of it. We are getting, at this point in time, we are getting some general kind of patterns that work, and that we've talked about that already. Earned media is probably the biggest, most important one. And that's not going to go away, because that's literally the nature of the way these LLMs operate. But the nuances of whether it's a quote or a FAQ or a schema or these sorts of things, you have to stay on top of it. They're going to sort of change over time.
Well, I guess that means good things for companies like Magentics that are in this business. We need to keep you around and keep on checking out how we're doing. I mean, is this something you have to have constant vigilance over? How often do you have to change tactics?
Yeah, so you need to be able to sort of monitor um, consistently. This is almost like a weekly or monthly kind of
Right.
management. And, you have to constantly, it's not just one, it's not like you just put in one um, question and get an answer and that's it. You have to run multiple of these and do a statistical analysis of what are the answers that are coming back. So yeah, no, it's a particularly now at the very beginnings of this sort of industry and the way AI is evolving, you definitely need to stay on top of it. And so yeah, I mean, and also I think you mentioned Magentics, but I also think that this is the golden era for companies like Fusion. I think Fusion has and other PR agencies have the muscle and the techniques to really make a difference. And so I think that's a really interesting paradigm for kind of the future.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why we're keeping a close eye in this area. We're working in this area, and one of the reasons I'm glad we connected with you about this. Just a couple more quick questions. We were talking about sources that can influence the results.
Hmm.
And we haven't spoken about, I think you've told me in the past, Reddit and Wikipedia are important.
Right.
Does Reddit eclipse other forums, by the way? And I guess
Well,
Wikipedia is kind of in a class by itself, but I mean,
yeah, this kind of goes back to the question or the topic we're just talking about things changing. So what's interesting is every LLM has a different sort of appetite for content and sources. Reddit was like number one for a very long time with ChatGPT, but then it dropped. It went from
wow.
60% down to 10%, and now it's back up.
And that can vary by, I mean, I think Google had a deal with them. That can
Yeah.
vary by the engine, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Every engine has its own sort of preferred sources, and they change. Um,
How do you prioritize then? Do you have to try to optimize across all the engines or the most popular ones or?
I think it's a function of your industry and your customer set. There's some element there, but you do have to consider that everybody's going to use different LLMs for particular reasons, and that makes this in a very interesting because this is another kind of paradigm I find people get in the trap of. They say, well, Google says this or Google says that, but there's so many more LLMs out there, not just Google's.
Right.
It's not just Gemini. So you really do need to think about based on your industry and your product set, you know, being flexible enough to respond to all the different variations in the LLMs.
Well, I guess like the SEO field, you have to go out there and do your homework research and
Yeah.
try to find ways to be smart about where you want to focus your budget and efforts. Um, we've talked about a lot. You've been very helpful in, providing more information about this space. Are there any questions? I'm just trying to think of any questions we should be asking we haven't gotten to.
One thing that I would do if I was in the audience, what sort of things would I start and stop? Um, I would start on a consistent basis, spending maybe an hour a week doing an audit of the types of questions you think your customers may ask and start to do that on a regular basis. Maybe
Hmm.
screenshot the results. What are the citations? And start to get your head around who is being cited and for what reason. The other thing I would probably stop is overemphasizing the website. I think our website is important. It's the foundation. It's a base set of information about your business. But we need to start thinking about this sort of broader footprint of content that talks about our business. And so, yeah, I mean that would. I mean, and then if anybody in the audience would like to follow up with a scan, happy to do that. In the speaker notes, we could provide a link to Majentics or have a follow-up conversation about how to sort of institutionalize this in your business.
Absolutely. That's a great idea. And I should add that we're offering free scans if you're curious about how this works and how you can improve results. So, as Dirk said, we'll have a link in the show notes. You can always hit us, either one of us, both of us, up on LinkedIn. We're happy to provide more help, more answers. And with that, I guess I will conclude. If you like this content, first of all, please like it, comment, review if you want to see more of it. And Dirk, we greatly appreciate you coming on and sharing your insight. This is fantastic. We hope people will take us up on the offer to do a free scan. Um, and we'll keep in touch, okay?
Thanks, Bob. It's been great.
Thanks, Dirk. Talk to you soon.